We have the goddess of fertility. You have the Nut, the goddess of the sky and the stars, the starry heavens. We have Osiris, the god of the underworld and afterlife. The Egyptians' life begin not at birth, and Egyptian lives begin at death. Egyptians prepare for their death than their being born, because life begins at death. And all your treasures, all your wealth, you go them under the ground. So an Egyptian will always look unto his death, whereas we were scared of our deaths. But an Egyptian death is something you look to with eager anticipation, because life begins at death, not at birth. There's a God that controls that. That is the God of Osiris. Then the star, the God of creation, just to mention but a few. I have no time to talk about African gods, the Egyptian gods. So Moses, having lived in the corridors of Pharaoh, was used to these gods. And these gods had specific names. And the Jews who were captives were used to gods with names. At least a god must have a name. So when the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob called him to send him to people who are used to gods with names, this is what prompted Moses to ask God, perchance I go to them, and I've told them that the God of your fathers, Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? Moses wanted God to be specific in his identity as Egyptian's God. Because in Africa, in Egypt, a God must have a name for him or her to be in existence. Without a name, a God is not in existence. So this thought was also entertained by the Greeks. And it is recorded in the book of Acts that when Paul the apostle was walking through the temple of gods in Athens, the Greeks knew they have many deities, and they were careful not to miss any deity. So among their many deities, they erected an altar without a specific name of a god. And they wrote it to a known God, in case there is a God in existence, whom we've not yet discovered. For him not to be angry and malevolent on us, let's build him an altar. Then they called the altar of the unknown God. So when the Apostle Paul went there, he took the advantage and told them, I'm brought to you, I've seen you are too religious, and you have an altar of a unknown God. That God is what I'm preaching to you, the God who is unknown. Paul took that advantage and introduced to them that God. The only one God, the God of Moses, son of Amram, whose name is a tetragrammaton name. What is his name? God gave a response to this question. If I go to them and they ask me, what is his name? God responded. In verse 6, God already said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. At this, when Moses heard it, he hid his face because he was afraid